Hey everyone, just a content warning. This book's plot revolves around self-harm and suicide and people's plans to take their own lives, and also includes some descriptions of torture. If you need help, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline phone number is 1-800-273-8255, and just be aware of the content. Thanks. Eventually, Reacher and Chang crabbed one at a time down the aisle to the airplane door.
I don't even own a television. Make me.
1, 2, 3. There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all, 'cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about bad books. I'm J.W. Friedman.
And I'm Chris, reaching for something to use as a middle name, Collision.
And so after our kind of turbulent and turmoil-filled trip into the world of dark, twisted fantasy, the non-Kanye variety, we decided it was time to take a break and go back to what we do best, which is reading books for dads. So, Collision, would you like to tell the listeners what it was that we read this time around?
Make me.
That's not like a personal question. I don't see why you'd be so reluctant. Can you just please tell the people at home what we read?
Make me.
No, look, I don't want to get into this like on the air. It's really embarrassing when we fight. Like, just please say the name of the book.
Make me.
God damn it. Wait. Okay, yeah. We read Make Me by Lee Child, which is, of course, if you don't know, one of the Jack Reacher books.
Wah, wah, wah.
We hope you enjoy our little Who's on First moment. That could have gone on much longer.
If I'd had anything to say about it, it would have gone on much longer. Jay pulled the ripcord on that, in my opinion, much too early. If you agree, do not at me. Just sit in the knowledge that you were right.
Okay. So we've done a Jack Reacher book before.
We're returning to the gruff, two-fisted, explainy embrace of Jack Reacher. The last time I think we read the first book in the series. This is the 20th. I think there's something like 27 now.
Wow.
You know, I remember almost nothing from that book. Do you remember anything?
I remember not many plot details, but I do remember the vibe being very different. Because in that book, Reacher was still in the military, correct?
No.
Or he was just recently discharged.
Semi-recently.
And he was a young man who was fairly resourceful. I got the impression. Yeah. Which, you know, I really thought
he loves to stay at the YMCA.
Which maybe he did. I don't remember. I just remember him being young and kind of virile and studly.
I mean, he definitely, in the first book, all I remember is that he had basically 3 hobbies. Big breakfasts with lots of coffee, two-fisted, double-barreled thirst for justice of the roughest sort, and an enduring passion for Roadhouse rhythm and blues.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
And in this book, not to jump too far ahead, we've stripped his hobbies down to big breakfasts, but much more, up front is his lust for coffee. Still has the same two-fisted, double-barreled lust for justice, but he no longer has any sort of artistic or aesthetic impulses. Now his third hobby is it's doing it and reflecting on it after he does it.
You could say that. I would say his third hobby is being intentionally homeless because
sure.
He's a guy with a lot of money who just travels around by train looking for towns with a quote-unquote story to tell.
Well, he's a drifter. He's a loner.
Yeah, and a rebel, Dottie.
Right.
You don't want to get mixed up with a guy like him.
You kind of don't if you don't want to be mixed up with a guy who deliberately owns literally nothing, not even a change of clothes.
Yeah, he wears the same clothes for 4 to 5 days in this book repeatedly, and he caught a whiff of himself and thought, time for a new outfit.
Right.
Which is actually in this book. But yeah, he's a rich drifter, basically.
Yeah, basically he's a drifter. The setup is really just sort of classic cowboy stuff. He's the cowboy who rides into town, sets things right, nails the pretty school teacher, and rolls on out.
Yeah. But before we get into the details of this book, I do want to talk about one thing, because this is the first time this has ever happened to me, and it was pretty, let's say, it was definitely a banner moment for me running the podcast. I was at a restaurant with a bar, reading this book, waiting for my food to arrive. It was pretty crowded. It was a Thursday night around 8:30 or 9.
You were sitting in the corner with your back to the corner so you could see all the entrances and exits and nobody could sneak up on you.
No, actually, the problem was I was at the end of the bar where people kept walking up to order things, so they'd be like right up in my shit. And at one point, two fairly attractive women about my age came over and were waiting for their beer, and one of them asked me, "What are you reading?" And my initial response was literally, "I don't want to tell you." And then I realized that sounded very creepy. So I was like, "It's a Jack Reacher book, but it's for a project." And one of them started laughing, and the other one went, "What's Jack Reacher?" And her friend said, "It's like Mission Impossible, but for grandpas." Oh, man, it was just like a sword through the ribs.
The iron unkind.
I know. So, yeah, that was, I think, the first time I've ever been called out in public for reading in a book for the show. I've been worried about it many times, but this was the first time somebody straight up called me out on it. I should have lied.
Yeah.
I should have said, like, Camus or something. I don't know. I'm reading Dostoevsky.
Agatha Christie. For dummies.
Yeah, not even, man. Not even. This is like
that's rough.
Yeah.
That is some rough chuckle right there. I did not get called out reading this, but that is because I read 98% of it in bed at a time I should have been sleeping. So let me advise that as a possible. So Reacher has some rules that he likes to live by. One of mine is never leave the house.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is I live by myself. Sometimes I get lonely. I like to go out to a bar and get food, a bar with food, because, there's a couple places around here. I'm friendly with the bartenders. We chat. It's, a good way to kind of socialize. Get something good to eat.
I've heard Piano Man.
Yeah. Exactly. Get something to eat, make my way through one of these shitty books. So that's what I was doing. But yeah, definitely the first time anybody's ever bothered to ask what I was reading in it. Oh, God.
So I do have a tendency to have either a library copy or a thrift store copy a lot instead of, when I can, instead of just getting the ebook from the retailer that shall not be named. And that means that I have read so many of these, like at a coffee shop or like on the way here.
People just know what you're reading.
Like I read several episodes ago, Who Moved My Cheese to My Head in a coffee shop.
Oh,
like,
wow.
At the bar, like sometimes like chatting with my friend who works there. And he didn't say anything. And I'm so fucking glad he didn't. But in a way, I also tiny bit wish he had, just so I could have been like, I don't actually need this self-help book, bro. I swear I do not need this self-help book. I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Like, don't worry about me. My cheese, it's right here.
Yeah, exactly. I know where my cheese is, bro.
I do want to say also...
Why am I saying bro? This book has fucked me up, man.
Yeah, bro. What's up, bro? I want to introduce our audience to a new phrase that I've created that I feel like is a nice compliment to Weed Dad.
Yeah.
Which is, this is not a book about a weed dad, but this is a book about a ramblin' dad. And I really want to get ramblin' dad into the lexicon, because this is about a dad who's just drifting from town to town, like probably listening to some classic rock on his headphones, getting teary-eyed every time Magic Carpet Ride comes on. Like...
explaining shit to everybody.
Everything. Oh, hey, by the way, I now know more about guns than I've ever wanted to know.
Yeah.
But I guess...
Guns, circles are explained several times.
Yeah, how to calculate distance in square miles.
Yep.
That was a very exciting part of the book.
Yep.
How to sit in a plastic chair.
Yep. Yeah. We'll get into this, but like the main relationship in the book is he meets an ex-FBI agent who's currently a private investigator, right? She's got, she's described as in her 40s. She has ample experience. And yet every time they talk about the case, which is pretty much all they talk about, he always kind of ends it with one of his little reacherisms.
A reach around, if you will.
A rambling dad, a reach around stew.
Oh, that sounds like a weird convention I don't want to go to.
Well, sorry, because I booked the tickets already.
Damn it.
It'll be on our Twitch channel, which is totally a thing that exists. And if you don't know about it, it's because you're not cool enough.
Yep, sorry.
Sorry.
It's hidden.
It's hidden on the deep web. Perhaps you can search it.
That'll make more sense later.
Yeah. But anyway, so she's got, decades of experience just like he does, but he always ends every conversation with one of his reacherisms, which is usually something like, hope for the best, plan for the worst. Which, okay, look, if you are a carpenter and you are helping your daughter, who's a young child, make a set of shelves for the books in her bedroom, and you tell her, measure twice, cut once, that's a useful thing to say in that time and place to that person. If you are a carpenter and you tell your boss or another carpenter you work with similar skills and experience to you, measure twice, cut once, you're an asshole to tell that person in that time and in that place that thing.
This book does have a weird balance between trying very hard to be woke and getting a lot of things wrong. And I think we'll get into that in more detail later. But Jack Reacher books do tend to always feature a very strong female sidekick who's a badass.
Yeah.
But then Reacher himself can't stop just mansplaining everything to them all the time. But I feel like this is going to come up again later.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we've characterized it a little bit. We've told you what it's like. That's it. This is have a great one, everybody.
Yeah. No,
check us out on Patreon.
Yep, definitely. Give us some money on Patreon for more 12-minute podcasts. No, I think this is the part of the show where we should try to summarize the plot of this book in a brief period of time. So here is plot in 60 seconds. Ding, ding, ding.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You got 60 seconds to give them the plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
That was the train rolling in. You have 60 seconds to get on board. Collision, are you ready to tell these folks what the book is about?
Make me.
God damn it. Before we started recording, you said that was going to be a runner, and I didn't believe you, but...
Sorry, I couldn't resist, nor will I be able to resist every other time I do it for the next hour and change.
It's probably better than the time that I kept bringing everything back to Wu-Tang Clan lyrics, so...
Jack Reacher is also nothing to fuck with.
That's true. When he's around, you better protect your neck.
I was going to say, there is one villain in this who failed to protect his neck.
Yeah.
And
he got smoked on the mic like smoking Joe Frazier.
He got shot with Reacher's 8+1.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. That was the one instance where Jack was not using his 9 and was in fact using some I don't know, Magnum or some shit.
I think Reacher has not only terrorized the jam like troops in Pakistan, he has terrorized the jam in Pakistan. So at least in one of these books.
I mean, for Jack Reacher, coffee rules everything around him.
Okay, let's stop doing this now. Wait. Who would Jack Reacher be? The Rebel INS?
Welcome to our podcast, Middle-Aged Men Free Associate about the Wu-Tang Clan.
I think he would definitely be Inspector Deck because he's older and a little more wise, but then sometimes he comes out with something that really surprises you.
Yeah, maybe. Or, I mean, wouldn't he be the Giza? I really think because he's integral to the unit he's part of, but when he goes solo, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, that's true. That is when the liquid swords take over. So, all right, let's stop this now. Are you ready to do plot in 60 seconds?
This doesn't work as well as my version of how Daughter of the Blood is actually a dark side Hogwarts.
Oh, that was great.
Which I did on Twitter, which I encourage you, number 1, not to be on. Number 2, don't look for what I'm talking about. And number 3, don't read it. And number 4, if you do read it, do not at me.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, plot in 60, shall we?
Yeah, get ready. And go.
Jack Reacher, the giant ex-military policeman who drifts around America punching evil and moving on before he can get attached, is drifting through middle America on a train when a town's name catches his eye, so he detrains in the town of Mother's Rest. He meets a woman described as Asian but not short and without an accent, which is not my favorite description of a character in recent memory. And within a couple pages, we readers know that this is a bad town and Jack Reacher is being watched. It turns out the lady is ex-FBI, now a private investigator, looking for an old co-worker named Keever, who we actually found out on page 1 was dead and buried under a hog farm 20 miles to the south. She doesn't know where he is or what he was investigating, and Reacher decides to help her. 200 pages of not much later, everything clicks. Keever was investigating the whereabouts of a guy named Mike at the request of Mike's dad. Mike was incredibly depressed and researching boutique suicide solutions on the deep web. Solutions
3,
involving
2.
getting off a train. Don't count down, I'm not even close.
All right.
Solutions involving getting off a train in Mother's Rest and being taken to a nearby farm. But the suicide purveyors found Keever and killed him. Reacher and his friend, in between having mind-blowing sex in hotels paid for by the LA Times via a plot contrivance that's literally too boring to explain, discover that the boutique suicide operation is just a front. Really what they're doing is advertising the operation to find victims they can then put into customized torture murder videos they make for high bidders on the super deep web. Reacher and Michelle Chang and a guy from the LA Times siege the hog farm and deliver red-hot justice from the barrels of their guns while riding a semi-stolen backhoe. The end.
That is pretty much it, yeah. God damn, that's really confusing when you just say it all at once like that.
And I clipped out, I think, in 2 entire subplots to convey that.
Yeah, you did. Like one of the most important parts of the beginning of this book is that Jack Reacher really wants to know why this town is called Mother's Rest, to the point where, like,
it's a runner.
Yeah, it is a runner. Like, every single character he meets, he asks, you know why this town's called Mother's Rest? Even if they have guns pointed at him.
In the town, he does that. Literally every time he mentions the town to a character outside that town, they say, why is it called that? And it seems like a real thin soup. It seems like a real long way to get to the diner. And does it pay off, Jay?
Kind of at the very end in a very non-eventful way.
Wah, wah.
Turns out it's just a bastardization of the original Indian name given to it that means where bad things grow.
Yeah.
But he's hoping that there was some story
Really?
about, like, a wagon train stopping so a woman could give birth, or, you know, someone else has the fanciful idea of, like, that's where his mother was buried and a town sprung up around it, and all this stuff. But he spends a good part of the first half of this book just walking through the town looking for a museum or a monument that will explain why the town is called Mother's Rest.
Such is the nature of his drifting. He looks at a map. He sees a name, it appeals to him, and he goes there.
Is this not, though, the most rambling dad thing ever, which is like, you know, like, you can't just go to a town and enjoy it. You have to walk around looking for the monument that tells you why the town is named that.
Right.
Like, you know, you can't just go have fun, check out the stores, do that kind of stuff. You've got to quarter the town block by block,
right,
looking for a fucking monument.
Which happens, I believe, 3 separate times.
Yeah.
He quarters the town and walks it block by block. He also does the same thing in a very small area of Chicago, which is good, because I have been to Chicago 2 times. Oh, yes, that's
you're
right.
a veteran.
Yeah. And I know one thing about Chicago. It's big.
Yeah, it's really big. Jack Reacher, like, it's never explicitly described, but I like to imagine that he kind of saunters with his thumbs in the pocket of his jeans, but the rest of his hands hanging out, and that's kind of his default gait.
That's a really good question. I am surprised that we do not have more detailed descriptions of his ambulatory mechanism, because that is the bulk of these books, is he's walking from place to place.
And his shoes, but I'm willing to bet they're New Balance.
Well, they were explicitly New Balance in the sort of parallel series to this. The, what's his name? Spencer books.
Ah, yeah.
Right? Like, he definitely wears New Balance, and you hear about it. I'm guessing Jack Reacher wears sturdy work boots, well broken in, but still with a good shine. We need to talk about his clothes a minute.
Yeah.
Every night. So Jack Reacher is sort of the ultimate minimalist.
Yeah.
He owns.
Wow, that's one way to look at it. That's definitely one way to look at it.
He owns literally nothing but what's on his back. He refuses to own anything he can't consume.
Yeah.
Right? Every night he checks into a motel. He folds his pants and puts them under the mattress, like between the mattress and box spring, I guess to press them?
Yeah, so he doesn't have to iron.
Okay, but he's wearing jeans or like Dickies.
Yeah.
You wouldn't iron Dickies, you'd melt them.
Jack Reacher would try.
Like, look, I've been in a lot of hotel rooms with a lot of wrinkly clothes. Mm-hmm. There's this trick you can do that doesn't really work, but that everybody tries.
The shower steam?
The shower steam.
Yeah.
Like, it will make it look less bad. It's not going to fix it. But the thing about it, a pair of pants put under a mattress is they're not going to air out there. And if you've only got one pair of pants, and I say this as a man with an affection for expensive denim, if you have only one pair of pants, they need some airings.
Yeah, especially if you're literally wearing them for 4 or 5 days at a time, because Jack Reacher is not a man who's loose with his cash.
No.
And so he only buys new clothes when he feels he needs them, which is every 4 or 5 days, which I either want to know what brand of deodorant he's using.
Right.
Or like when his nose stopped functioning.
Well, I think in the first book, I think that there were a couple of mentions of him washing his under things every night in the sink.
Oh, God, of course.
But we're 20 books in now, and such niceties have gone, clean out the window.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's buying new clothes every 4 or 5 days and just like rolling with it. I guess he's probably wearing like those really, those Office-O briefs I wear when I'm camping.
I think he's freeballing it. I think Jack Reacher is going commando all the time.
If you have opinions about Jack Reacher's balls and their containers, please drop us an email at I don't even own a television.gmail.com.
But I mean, he is, like you said, the ultimate minimalist. Why would he need underwear?
I mean,
chafing.
Do you really want me to explain?
Yeah. Well, I kind of need some tips in that department. So,
I will just say, for reasons not my own, I've recently mixed in some much better underwear than your standard Hanes boxer briefs into the rotation.
Ooh, and if you'd like to get some better underwear, why not lock? No, I'm just kidding.
These are not internet underwear. These are just normal underwear.
I was just getting ready to read a fake ad.
Yeah,
sorry.
Exactly. It's kind of nice.
Would have been a great segue.
I recommend it. Yeah, it would have been. It would have been much better than your average podcast advertisement.
Yeah. By the way, use our coupon code Fuck Underwear for 10% off your free balling pants.
When I read in bed, I like to do it on a muffed and teetle mattress.
Yeah. So before we get any further into high points, low points, I had a couple observations and things I wanted to ask and talk with you about.
Okay. You mean you actually want to talk about this stupid book instead of just ramble?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's not what I want to do.
Not rambling like a dad. I definitely want to ramble like that later on with my thumb in my pants pocket. But was Jack Reacher this much of like a straight up like stick in the mud in the previous books? Did he come across like a grandpa this much, or is this just like Lee Child's getting older and writing an older character as a result?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I remember the first one. They definitely go to roadhouses. I don't remember if he drinks beer when they're at the roadhouse. Here, I think he's all but a teetotaler.
I mean, yeah, and he's like ready to bust out a coupon book at like any moment. Like he comes across like an elderly man who's using his AARP discount everywhere. It's really strange.
I mean, no ageism here, but it is an odd thing to see at the center of a two-fisted Justice Fury machine.
We're probably the oldest people who will hear this, so I think it's okay for us to say that anyway.
No, that's fair, but this is definitely sort of your end stage Charles Bronson in Death Wish type age. This is your, if you've ever seen a movie called Charlie Varick, it's a action movie, sort of an action heist chase movie. The hero is one Walter Matthau.
Oh. Like, is this like late career Walter Matthau?
No, it's 70s, and it's actually a pretty good movie. It's very gritty, very greasy. Has Jodan Baker as a truly frightening, evil bad guy. And this is sort of that. Like, and it's fairly believable, except that like whenever he talks or is reflecting on something, you're right, it's just impossibly stodgy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to like say it without just being like a straight up jerk, and I don't want to give away too much of what I have planned for a game later.
So here, Jay, are some Jack Reacher facts I've compiled that I think might help illuminate the sort of frustrating, stodgy elements of the character we're talking about. We've already alluded to his endless capacity to explain things. So you'd assume that he's naturally, capital G, good at everything, right? But no. Number one, this is supposed to be quirky and relatable, I think, and make him seem less like an invulnerable machine. He doesn't drive.
Yeah. That
doesn't
is
have a license.
Yeah.
Right? He's a little bit clumsy because he's so big and strong.
Just like a beautiful woman in a romantic comedy.
Yeah, he occasionally turns an ankle.
Whoops, he's human after all.
Yeah. And this is kind of the most annoying one to me, but it might be deliberate. He lectures endlessly about psychology. Most of his investigative technique involves thinking and saying out loud, what would a person do? We know they would do X because they're a person, therefore X. And despite this, he's completely immune to subtext. So at one point, his partner, Michelle Chang, says, as she comes back from the bathroom, I can show you where the bathroom is. He's like, I think it's fine. She's like, I think you need to know where it is. He's like, I'm sure I'll be able to find it if I need it. One of the people in the room with him who he's interrogating has to say to him, she wants to speak with you privately.
Yeah, no, that's very true. He's a little dense when it comes to the kind of the finer points of social skills, for
Again,
sure.
That might be a joke.
It's not a joke. And it kind of comes to something that I was going to say, because like a lot of what he does in this book is basically like Holmesian deduction. Like Jack Reacher is kind of like...
My man, slow.
No. I mean, on a very low, stupid level. But Jack Reacher is kind of like a big, dumb army Sherlock Holmes. Like... complete with the lack of social graces. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's playing into that a little bit. I don't think it's a joke, but I think that's just who the character is.
But you think it's supposed to be deliberate, which is what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like, I mean, it's pretty hilarious because he does a lot of these deductions throughout the book where he'll be like, I could tell when he was reaching back shoulder high, that was probably a phone there. And, by the way he jumped and all this. But like, the thing is like with Sherlock Holmes, when he would lecture people endlessly about stuff like that, it's supposed to be annoying and like borderline antisocial. And in this, it's supposed to be like endearing and make you like him. So he's kind of like big, dumb, likable Sherlock.
Yeah.
But he punches a lot more.
Although Sherlock Holmes was a winning prize fighter in his day.
It's true. I have seen the movie with Robert Downey Jr. and the bulldog that farts.
That is also that's canon. That's in the text.
It is.
He basically meets a bouncer one time who lets him in because he's like, "Oi, it's Sherlock Holmes, you are. You sure gave me a right whacking round the old nubbins 2 years ago at blah de blah."
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to explain Sherlock to me, buddy. I know all about my Holmes.
I enjoy the great game myself.
It is afoot. And speaking of which, I think we should probably do some high points, low points.
Make me.
God damn it. Here's the song.
High points are high. And low points are low. High points, low points, get ready to go.
All right, so let's get started with some high points here. I'll go first. I think one of the things that did kind of surprise me about this book is that there's a surprisingly good metaphor for the internet and how search engines work.
What?
No, seriously.
The balls in the swimming pool?
The balls in the swimming pool is pretty on point. Like, there's this whole thing of a guy who visualizes the internet as a bunch of balls in a swimming pool. And then it's described by this woman who's a internet search engine expert to think of a search engine as a ribbon going through all of the balls in the pool. And some of the balls would be spikier, and they'd be designed to grab onto that ribbon. And some of them would be smooth, and they'd be designed to not be detected at all. Which is like, that's a pretty good description of search engine optimization and obfuscation, which really surprised me. They also, like, the picture of the deep web, which becomes a big part of this book later on,
right,
is remarkably on point and doesn't make the same mistakes that a lot of other techno thriller type books make with confusing the deep web and the dark web, which are two completely different things. Although they do get the dark web wrong, but that's whatever. I don't want to keep talking about this or we'll get emails from the weirdest people on the planet. But like, yeah, this book in its weird folksy, like homespun style is not where I would expect to find some pretty accurate and well-explained metaphors for how the internet works. So I think Lee Childs had some pretty good researchers working for him, basically, because I'm not going to give him credit for this.
All right, let's go ahead and give him credit. We skipped. This is one of the subplots that I completely left out. So would it be a high point or a low point for you, Jay, that we have a hacker character who's a wizened veteran at 29 in all black, has created his own custom deep web search engine while constantly flipping on doses?
I need to stop you there because this is literally one of my low points. So let's save this.
I'm shocked.
We'll go on to your first high point, and then I'll come back to talking about that.
Okay. I didn't know that would have jumped out to you. That I should have, however.
It's about dorks on the internet. It's gonna jump out to me.
So this is my first high point. This is a highlight I made. It is the beginning of chapter 12. The paper was a stiff white square, about 3.5 inches on a side, with one gummed edge. A sheet from a memo block or cube. Reacher had seen such things before.
Just say Post-it note. God damn.
Also, don't ask me to be impressed that Jack Reacher has seen a Post-it note.
That's a good point, too.
It was a shirt designed cleverly to cover only the torso and the very upper parts of the arms and armpits. If you squinted, it had sort of a squat T shape. Reacher nodded approvingly. He'd seen shirts like that in the past.
Yeah, totally. Oh. I mean, this book, once again, and I think we said this about the first Jack Reacher book, this book loves to explain things to you.
He saw people step into a giant metal rectangle with wheels on the bottom. It accelerated quickly, more quickly than a human could run.
When pressing the pedal on the right, the car accelerated. It reminds me of...
Reacher smiled. He totally knew what that was.
I just rewatched Time After Time, the movie where H.G. Wells chases Jack the Ripper into future San Francisco.
Oh, I thought you meant the 3-minute movie where a digitized version of the members of Rush and a digitized Amy Mann are inexplicably cut and pasted and swooped around a rehearsal space because somebody had just gotten their first copy of, like, I don't know, Post Toaster or whatever it was.
No, yeah, this
Image
was
Toaster.
There's a lot of scenes with H.G. Wells trying to figure things out without, like giving away the fact that he's from the past.
Right.
And he gets in a woman's car and is describing to himself, like, I see. The pedal on the right makes the car accelerate, while the pedal on the left decreases its speed. And that would be a Jack Reacher moment, basically.
Yeah. Except motherfucker doesn't even drive.
Yeah.
Actually, he does. He takes a turn in driving once, and it's explicitly described as unlicensed and illegal.
Yeah.
And if you think I didn't pause to put on a little Judas Priest breaking the law, you don't know collision, my listener. Do you think Jack Reacher is the kind of guy who, like, the second the first foot hits outside the diner when they're leaving the diner, is he just instantly like, shotgun?
Probably. Because, I mean, it depends on who he's with, for sure. But, like, definitely if there's kids around, he would do that to be funny. All right.
But then there would be like a 15-page like, that tradition goes back to the times when bad people, possibly red people, were trying to rob stagecoaches, and someone had to ride next to the driver carrying a shotgun. Reacher had never liked shotguns. They were a clumsy, imprecise tool he much preferred the reliable regality of a Ruger.
Yeah. Or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know shit about guns.
Yeah, me neither. Even after reading this book, which explains the details of guns to you, like
Yeah.
every 5 pages, it kind of flew in one side and out the other. So sorry if we're wrong. Okay, yeah, low point. So although the technical accuracy did surprise me, I got pretty bummed when this book turned in a detour. It took a pretty sharp detour and became a cyber thriller for about 80 pages, which involved, like, as you mentioned, a hacker character in fucking Menlo Park. Like, they meet in a Soviet-themed novelty bar, which is exactly like something that would exist here. And then...
Except that it's next to a bookstore. I've never seen any bookstores in Silicon Valley. Womp womp.
Well, I have, but they're all closing dramatically fast. Thanks, fucking Amazon. But yeah, so... It's not Child's strong suit talking about like techno babble type shit for sure. And like I'd much rather read about Jack Reacher punching justice with strategic mastery than like watching some nerd from Menlo Park type into a search engine. And that does take up about 50 to 60 pages of this book.
While flipping on doses.
Yeah, it's true. It starts out, he says something about how he used to take Molly all the time, but now he's just on every form of speed imaginable.
All right. I'm sorry. On page 380 and then again on page 391, the narrator of the book points out, again, 2 separate times in the space of 11 pages, that most buildings are rectangular. That is a quote.
Yes.
Like, I get that explaining things is fun. I enjoy it myself. Arguably, I enjoy explaining more than most men, but like, my God, dude, there in fact are limits. See also, there are 2 separate explanations that if you know a person left a point in a straight line away from that point, but you don't know what direction they were going, that actually describes a lot of area because it creates a circle. But the thing is that the point here is you don't know what direction they were going. Like, drawing a circle does not, in fact, add information. If the point is that's too much area to search, right? The point is you don't know which way they went.
And, I mean, it's worth mentioning, too, that we literally get into the description of the formula for finding a circle. We get into talking about
how do you
pi.
find the area of a circle? Why, that's pi r squared.
Yeah, and we get into that in detail. It's like, I don't know, like suddenly Bill Nye the Science Guy has like popped his head into the book to just give you a little aside. Yeah.
We could, I don't know how much money they have, but I have a curve here. We could draw tiny triangles under the curve to estimate the area and draw ever tinier triangles to get closer. That's called asymptotically approaching the answer. I just invented calculus by way of trigonometry.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right. So,
anyway, stop explaining shit, dude.
okay, well, let me explain to you what my second low point is. And first, it should be known that a low point is definitely, I would say, the nadir of a graph, where you're looking at something and there's a high point and then there's a lowest point on it. And this, for me, in the book, represents that lowest point of the graph.
I didn't follow. Can you dumb it down for me?
Yeah, so like basically at a staircase, if you're talking about a staircase, it might go from the first floor up to the 12th floor. And the 12th floor, of course, would be the high point as it's the highest position you could be in the staircase, whereas the first floor would be the low point as it's the lowest position you could take.
You lost me.
I'm sorry, you're just going to have to
Fail the
wing
course.
it. Yeah, wing it.
Maybe you could make me a graph.
So, my low point is that the entire conclusion of the book is silly as shit. Like, They've recruited now a guy who writes for the science desk of the LA Times, which I don't believe exists. And if it does, it's definitely not filled with badasses who are ready to go out shooting automatic rifles from the inside of a bulletproof fucking backhoe.
And everybody's so impressed by this guy because of how he dresses, which is sort of like 2010 Indiana Jones. Like, his clothes have lots of zippers, and he's wearing hiking boots. I've been to REI. I've been to REI in the last week.
Yeah.
I know how the man is dressed. It's
Yeah.
not that cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's because they were totally expecting like a pencil-necked geek. And instead, this rugged outdoorsman shows up and they're like, whoa, he has hiking boots on.
They do know that a lot of the science that gets done happens outside, right? Where the materials for science generally are, where, like, you know, for example, the environment is.
Yeah, but I think it surprises both of them because they're kind of stupid.
No, but it's not just them. Like, the gunmen are also surprised by this.
I mean, they're kind of stupid too. There are very few characters in this book that I would not categorize as kind of stupid.
You know what? That's fair.
That's kind of a high point in and of itself, but that's not where we are.
Dunces for justice.
Yeah,
a Jack Reacher tale.
Meanwhile, while our LA Times correspondent is driving the bulletproof backhoe through a wheat field to obfuscate it from a bunch of gunmen, Jack Reacher is magically overcoming severe coup and contra coup brain trauma, which is basically he's got bruises on both parts of his brain, and he's overcome it through sheer force of will. Despite the fact that this is something that hospitalizes people on a routine basis, and then an in-depth knowledge of the way wheat grows. And using all of these things together, they managed to have a successful gunfight with like 30 people. And there are a lot of scenes in it which would be much more interesting if it weren't for the fact that they were resolved by the fact that everybody on the villainous side of the equation is horrible at aiming their guns.
Oh my God. You have not seen shooting this bad since your last G.I. Joe cartoon or early Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there are tense standoffs that just end with Jack Reacher stood still because he knew the guy couldn't hit him. And then the guy would shoot and it would miss him. And he's like, yes, I was right.
That's literally the whole climactic showdown. The baddest of the bad guys is bad with a rifle, so they're basically able to walk up to him, and Michelle Chang is able to give a pithy little summation before she shoots him in the neck.
I do like that's getting into high points again, so I'll save that. But do you have another low point?
Whoo boy do I. It's honestly hard to know where to focus in terms of this, but I'm going to get serious for a second. The twist where they're not just preying on and exploiting people who want to take their own lives, but are then putting them into snuff videos.
Yeah.
Snuff videos like we beat a woman up with a baseball bat for 2 days until she died.
Yeah, or starved to death.
Or starved to death another guy. I found that actually repellent.
It was stomach churning for sure.
And it was way over the top for a dumb airport read like this, I thought.
Yeah, no, I mean, even when it got to the point where it was an assisted suicide facility, I was like, this is a little more serious than the rest of the book.
Yeah.
I was like, you're suddenly dealing with some pretty serious human issues. And then, yeah, by the time you get to the point where it's custom snuff films being made to customers' requests.
On the deep web.
On the deep web. Yeah, I agree 100%. It was just, it kind of came out of nowhere about 20 pages before the end, and you're just like, holy fuck. When did this book get so, gross and intense?
Did we really need them to ratchet up the stakes? I thought we were pretty okay with the fact that they were just killing a few people.
You could have stopped at the point where they were distributing Nebutol, which was how it started, and that's what they thought that was going on there, is that they were distributing a suicide drug.
Well, the main problem with it is, okay, so what we've got here is a story whose inciting incidents are just a guy went missing looking for another guy who was missing, right? And the big problem is that there's too much money involved for it to be just a drug distribution ring or just this creepy boutique suicide solution shop. So they had to up the stakes somehow, but the only reason they had to up the stakes was to fix its own plot hole about there not being enough money in the operation as described.
Yep.
To say nothing of the fact that the suicide solution as described makes literally 0 sense.
Isn't that an Aussie song?
It is. So it's just this like cascading set of plot failures, which is a uniquely cynical and crummy way and reason to jack up the stakes.
Yeah, it's like the guy who keeps pushing chips in when he's got nothing because he thinks you're going to fold.
Right.
And it's bad. I didn't like it at all. Wow, I just made a poker metaphor. I'm becoming Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher didn't like to gamble with money. His life would do, thanks.
Yeah. He never bet on hands he didn't have. Bluff, Reacher, never. Okay, so I guess we need to do high points.
Yeah, let's pivot from that low point to lighthearted high point.
I have a couple, actually. I'm going to cheat because they're both short and they're both very specific. And one of them is, we mentioned Reacherisms before. One of them I should hate, but I found really, really good. Where he tells another character, admit nothing, even on your deathbed. You might get better.
One of the popular highlights.
I really liked that for some reason.
The popular highlights in this book were so disheartening. That one was an actual groaner for me.
I enjoyed it, actually. I was like, I'm going to store that one away.
You're going to drop that in your next team meeting, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. But my true high point is the fact that this book has an omniscient narrator who is supposed to be just, all-seeing eye, but obviously loves Jack Reacher, which is, that's fair. I mean, it's a book about Jack Reacher. So, obviously the narration is going to go in his favor. But, I mean, it goes to the extent of the first act of violence in this book is they're rear-ended on the highway by two brothers. And the brothers have guns, and he disarms one of them by kicking him in the crotch and taking his gun when he drops it. And from that point on, every single time that character comes into the book, he's described as, quote-unquote, the guy who got kicked in the balls and had his gun taken. And this is by the narration. This is not by a character in a book. It would be like, the three men were at the diner. They were joined by the guy who got kicked in the balls and had his gun taken.
That happens at least 4 times. It is glorious.
It's awesome.
Also, what's our hyper hacker friend's name?
Oh, I don't remember.
The guy from Palo Alto.
Oh, Jesus. I'm having flashbacks to previous episodes now, too.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
I wonder if he fucked a lot.
Yeah.
Once he fucked once, he fucked a lot. The guy from Palo Alto. Spin back in our back catalog if you're not sure what we're talking about.
I guess I owe you a high point somehow. I'm just going to read you a couple of the sentences in this that made me laugh. From page 4. There was mist in the nighttime air, like a note on a calendar.
What?
I don't think we've ever gotten a book where 4 pages in, the editorial staff had so visibly checked out.
Well, this is the whole style of the book, is really trying for this terse kind of, terse, somewhat literary, but still airport fiction.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of these really overwrought metaphors, but then there's shit that makes no sense like that.
There's also at least 2 extremely lengthily described passages about sunrises.
Oh, yeah.
And longtime listeners will remember the first time we ever did this book. Did we discover something intriguing about Lee Child, Jay?
Fuck, I don't remember that far back.
So I vaguely remember this could be a different book, but I think this is when we were sort of we had been pretty mad about the book, but we did a little research, or you did a little research, and discovered that Lee Child is actually a pretty right-on dude.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't take himself super seriously.
I do remember this.
And then I think we discovered that maybe Lee Child enjoys the occasional puff of the devil's lettuce.
Yeah, I think
an alligator cigarette.
He spends a lot of time in a mobile home traveling, if I remember correctly.
I think he enjoys a little bit of party parsley.
I think he does. Yeah, the old jazz cigs.
The dank.
Yeah.
The ditchweed.
Yeah.
Mother Mary.
Yeah.
And I want to read you a passage where that all clicked again for me.
Uh-huh.
The benches were magnificent. They could have been 100 years old. They were made from solid mahogany, upright and severe, only grudgingly sculpted the human form and polished to a shine by use. Reacher picked a spot and sat down. The contour felt better than it should. The shape was stern and Puritan, but it was very comfortable. The woodworker had done a fine, subtle job. Or maybe the wood itself had given up the struggle, and instead of fighting back had yielded and molded and learned to embrace. From all the shapes and sizes, with their various masses and temperatures, literally steamed and pressed like an industrial process in super slow motion. Was that possible? With wood as hard as mahogany? Reacher didn't know.
Well, Jack, I would really recommend you go with something like the headband or the purple Kush because it's a real head high, not a body high.
He needs a body high at this point.
Yeah.
That dude is way too high to be in a rural train station. That's how you get your ass kicked.
Yeah, it would have been great if like the next sentence was like, I shouldn't have smoked all that couch glue.
Yeah. Reacher was peckish.
He decided he needed some Takis right now.
Yeah. So those moments where Lee Child gets in touch with his inner fan of, the sticky icky.
Yeah, I think that's...
Please me to virtually no end.
I think that's pretty safe. There's also a scene where Jack Reacher falls asleep on a lawn chair in the middle of the day.
Yes.
Outside. Just a lawn chair he doesn't own.
Oh, is that entirely deliberate? Yes, that's his plan for the afternoon. Like, sit in the sun, catch some Z's. And to that, I have only 2 words to say. My man.
Hit the vape pen. Blow some sick clouds.
What would Jack Reacher's favorite podcast be? If Jack Reacher got into podcasts.
Something. Probably Joe Rogan.
No, come on. He would think that Joe Rogan talks too much, and he would be right.
I don't know. I don't know any weed podcasts.
I think it would be something like, it wouldn't be like true crime, but it would be like American history, something about presidents.
Oh, what's that? What's hardcore history?
Yeah, but something not too jokey. It would just be like people...
No, hardcore history is not jokey.
I haven't heard.
That's just Dan Carlin monologuing for like an hour and a half in his weird Midwestern accent about battles on the Eastern Front in World War II. It's really good.
All right. Yeah. Well, this has been Serious Answers to Joke Questions. The most fun segment in podcasting history. Do we owe any more high points, low points?
No, that's it.
Okay.
So I think it's time for us to go back on our white plastic chairs outside on the porch, catch some Z's, come back and play some games.
Make me.
We're back, fresh off the train, ready to ramble. Just like Jack Reacher, with our thumbs in our jeans pockets, which are probably boot cut.
Oh, you know that these have, not the inseam, but like the crotch length that's probably about 18 inches.
Oh, yeah.
From button to bottom of the crotch.
Like that famous Lyndon Johnson phone call to Levi's, where he's like, it's like riding a rail. I need the inseam down a lot more. If you haven't heard this, by the way, look this up. It's like actually in government records. There's a recording of Lyndon B. Johnson, talking to the Hager Slacks Company about how the pants they made for him hurt his crotch. And it's, I mean, I'm not going to say.
It's a rough ride.
Yeah. So now I think it's about time for the most historical podcasting segment in history. Wow, that was like a double whammy. This is Dramatic Readings.
Jay, that was a bit of a reach.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, so Dramatic Readings, we're going to take parts of this book and read them to you. And while normally we read, sequential, single passages, I know, Collision, you've prepared a selection for the audience at home.
I have.
Would you like to set people up for what they're about to hear?
I would not.
You're supposed to say, make me.
Shit fuck. I'm not even committed enough to my own stupid bits to hit my cues.
I thought for sure that was like just like a meatball coming right over the plate.
It was there was, but like I got distracted by a pretty seagull flying over the stadium. People, I'll understand if our Patreon numbers dip precipitously for that catastrophic failure on my part, and I apologize.
It's okay. I doubt anyone was really enjoying us going back to that well over and over again, but I was.
A podcast for us.
I mean,
not
ultimately, that's why I do it, right?
Totes.
It's an excuse to hang out and drink at noon.
Yes, I am, like many opponents of Jack Reacher, am taking the silver bullet today because it's going to be a long day, so I can't actually enjoy it. So I'm drinking what friend of the show, friend of mine, former guest David Roth, memorably, at least to me, dubbed Farty Seltzer.
Yeah, I believe we mentioned this like 4 or 5 episodes ago, and I said Farty Seltzer would be a good name for like a second-tier Wu-Tang Clan member, so we're back on that again. He'd be in like... Brooklyn Zoo with Shorty Shitstain.
You guys think you hear about Shorty Shitstain a lot. He talks about it when the mics aren't on too. So
it's the best name ever. It's even better than Pudgy the Fat Bastard, which is like my second favorite rap name.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Anyway.
Okay. It is time to read dramatically. No dining chairs were required that night for Reacher. They ate dessert and drank coffee, slowly, relaxed, not rushing at all, both of them choosing to trust the inevitable. And then Chang signed the check and stood up, and Reacher stood up with her, and she linked her arm in his, like they were an old couple from way back. And they walked out together, slowly, relaxed, not rushing at all. And they waited for the elevator, and rode up to 5, and opened the room. Then it got a little less slow, and a little less relaxed, and a little more rushed. Chang was warm and fragrant, and smooth, and long-limbed, and young but not a kid, and she was strong enough to push back, and she was solid enough not to worry about. Reacher liked her a lot, and she seemed to like him back. Afterward, they talked for a spell, and then she fell asleep, and then he did too, the best way he knew. Reacher's theory had always been the second time was by far the best. No more tiny inhibitions and no more first-time fumbles, yet still plenty of novelty and excitement. But that theory had been shattered. It had been blown apart. All theories should be tested, Westwood had said. That's a central part of the scientific method. And tested it they had. The second time, an hour ago, had been sensational. But the third time had been better. Way better. Reacher lay there, drained, empty, his bones turned to rubber, relaxed in a way that made any previous notion of repose seem like furious agitation. Eventually Chang rolled up on one elbow and traced her fingers over his chest, to his neck, to his face, and down again, as if learning him, as if memorizing the slabs and contours of his body.
The slabs.
In turn, he was happy with stillness, his hand on the inside of her thigh, unmoving, but alive with the thrill of hot skin, damp but velvet smooth, the muscle under it slack, a tiny pulse ticking against his palm. Yes, rarely have we thrilled more to guy falls asleep after sex.
All right, so Jack Reacher is pretty explicitly a man in his mid to late 50s. It's one hell of a refractory period. 1 hour?
Jack Reacher's a hell of a man.
Yeah.
And a hell of a lover.
Either that or maybe one of his few possessions is some Viagra.
Oh, we're not done yet.
I mean, he does love Roadhouse Blues, and if there's one thing I've learned about erectile dysfunction, guys with erectile dysfunction love to play Roadhouse Blues inside of barns.
That's true. That's true.
I think that's Cialis, but whatever.
Whatever. What was on Reacher's mind was his theory. Got my mind on my theory.
Theory on my mind, yeah.
His theory, which had suffered further revision. The fourth time had been better than the third. Hard to believe, but true, which was bittersweet. Because one day it would have to be average. It had to stop somewhere, sooner or later. It couldn't keep getting on better forever. Could it? Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
The fifth time involved butt stuff. You're holding up a finger for the people at home. There is not butt stuff in this book.
Just looking for the fifth part, sorry. Oh, maybe there isn't a fifth part. I didn't highlight the fifth part.
I don't think there is a fifth part, but I'm sure it involved butt stuff. Just want to point that out.
Reacher gasped. My prostate, he said.
How did you know? I didn't even know where it is.
So hopefully that was sufficiently theoretical and dramatic for everyone.
So speaking of theoretical and dramatic, here's something theoretical that is completely not dramatic and should be. This is how fistfights are described in the world of Jack Reacher. And brace yourself, buckle in. It's going to be a long and wild ride.
How fisted justice? Two-fisted justice.
Yeah, basically. Brawling, all in the head. Win 'em before you get in 'em. Reacher said, "Let's see if we can help you out of this mess." His standard procedure, such as it was, based on what had worked for a right-handed person facing a right-handed gunman, was to drive slightly forward but mostly counterclockwise, a savage rotation from the waist, explosive, exaggerated like a dance move, with the right shoulder whipping hard around, therefore the right elbow whipping hard around, and the right hand in the right palm, the palm smacking hard against the inside of the bad guy's wrist, and then pushing it hard, pushing the gun out of orbit, then clamping on like a claw, the other hand meanwhile coming palm to palm with the gun hand, the left against his right, like dancing, like fighting over the gun, but it's not fighting over the gun. It's pushing the gun hand back and back, all the time dragging the wrist forward with the claw until the wrist breaks and the gun drops. But you could save yourself a lot of effort, because he's got a suppressor. That gun is twice as long as his muscle memory thinks it is, which makes it easy. Go the short route, which Reacher did, twisting hard from the waist but short, keeping his palm hooked close to his body, smacking not the guy's wrist, but the suppressor itself, pushing it wide and safe, then grasping it and hauling on it hard. A standard procedure, so called because it was often used, like a default setting, because 99 times in 100 it worked. But this was the 100th guy. He knew what to do. He didn't allow himself to get hauled around off balance by keeping hold of the gun. He let go of it right away, instantly. He gave it up, no contest. He just dropped it and spun away. It was the only smart play. It was 1 in 100. It was a smart play because even though it gave Reacher sole possession of a lethal weapon, it gave him possession of it the wrong way around. He had grabbed it by the suppressor in his right hand, palm outward, and he was still rotating away from the action, and the dead stop and the right-left-right shuffle to get the gun where it needed to be was going to occupy some finite slice of time, and then turning the barrel towards the target was going to occupy another slice, maybe longer, because it was a long barrel, with the suppressor in place. Not point and shoot, more like lashing the guy with a whip, which would take what, a second and a half, 2 seconds? During which time a guy smart enough to start such a play will be hitting you in the side of the head. He'll be raining down the blows, maybe 4 in 2 seconds, if he's any good with the speed bag. Better to let the gun go for the time being. Better to come back to it later. Better to get ready for what you know is coming. Reacher opened his hand and the Ruger fell away, and he started to unwind his counterclockwise twist, bringing his elbow up backhand, ducking his head down, and the first of the incoming blows bounced off the top of his skull. Then a left hook caught him above the ear, a savage blow like an iron bar, and then his own elbow arrived in the neighborhood, scything a kind of defensive no-fly zone through the air, butting against the next incoming right, and he used its momentum to pull a left hook of his own out of the bag, but the bang above the ear had set back the unwinding process an inch or two, so his blind aim was off, and the punch landed weakly. It didn't knock the guy through the staircase railing, but merely bounced him off it, at which point the guy showed more talent. Naturally, Reacher was leaning in, waiting to finish it, waiting for the guy to come flopping back, all loose and raggedy and defenseless. But the guy jerked away sideways at 90 degrees, a supreme gymnastic effort, remarkable for a big man, and a lifesaver, with a bonus. Not only had the guy escaped a colossal impact, but now Reacher had his weight on the wrong foot, so the guy took advantage by stepping in a pace and crashing a short left into Reacher's kidney, which Reacher felt would leave a bruise. This goes on for like 10 more pages.
I mean, if your personal high point for literature was in The Dark Knight Returns when Batman is thinking things to himself like, from our respective positions, there are 8 possible counterattacks. 2 disarm, 3 kill, 2 wouldn't work, and the last one hurts. Then this should like float your boat all the way down the moat.
Yeah, or the aforementioned Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies where like time would stop and you'd see him plan out where he was going to punch a guy a bunch of times before he did it.
I actually thought that was pretty smart, like combining the fact that like, yes, he's established as a boxer, but then showing how a supercomputer brain would actually be useful for a boxer.
I thought it was neat, but what I don't think is neat is like reading 20 pages to describe what is essentially like a 2-minute fight tops. And it's all like just written in the language of like a judo manual.
Yeah, we like different. That's an interesting point. I actually like that stuff here. I usually don't like it in other books. I like the way Child does that. And I can't actually figure out why I dislike these books as much as I do. There's nothing here that's abnormal. Politically, it's way better than any of the other men's adventure books we do, because it is just sort of garden variety men's adventure, but 30 years after it fell out of fashion.
Yeah, and there's a woman who can stick up for herself instead of just being an object that's like traded back and forth or refrigerated or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Although it's funny because she's an FBI agent who was mostly a financial crimes analyst, but by the end of the book, is she spraying out full mags of submachine gun ammo? You bet your sweet bippy she is.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. But yeah, I mean, it's way less reprehensible than a lot of the stuff we've read in the same sort of genre.
So why do I dislike it so much more? That's what I can't quite figure it out.
It's weird because I would say, just judging from your comments, it's the over-explaining. But I mean, that I just read is the epitome of over-explaining. He's talking basically about how punches work.
What? Fucking punches. How do they work?
I don't know.
It's true, but I don't know. Maybe I like that, and I like some of the gunplay for similar reasons. Like there's this thing we were laughing about off air where he's like literally thinking so fast and ahead of everybody else. He's got people splayed out in front of him, and it's first base, second base, third base.
And he mentions unassisted triple play, which like I was like,
I thought that was going to be either your high point or your dramatic reading, honestly.
That honestly was like a non-mention, but it was a high point for me because like not many people realize that is possible.
Right.
It has happened. It has won a World Series in the 1920s.
And it not only says unassisted triple play, this is the kind of book where there's a lot of single sentence paragraphs.
Yeah.
So the last 2 paragraphs in that chapter are, if I remember right, unassisted triple play. Last paragraph, baseball immortality.
Oh, that's correct.
Like, and that was a real nice moment, I think.
Yeah, he takes down three Russian thugs, or sorry, Ukrainian thugs, and that all have guns. And then throughout it, he's referring to him as first base, second base, and third base.
Right.
and then makes the unassisted triple play quip.
Right. To himself. Please, we should note, I used to work with a bunch of Ukrainians. I know the difference between Russia and Ukraine. I know the political situation between Russia and Ukraine. The thing that Jay just said is actually a running joke in the book.
Yes.
Where only idiots can't tell the difference. I cannot stress this enough.
Yes.
We know the difference.
Yeah, at one point, it's referred to as one of those new countries. Ukraine is. So, yeah.
Sometimes with like a little new country, you can really get that reminder that Lee Child is an Englishman.
Yeah, definitely. I always forget that, but yeah, you're right. So moving on, let's do a What Is Your Fave?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
We've already established that Jack Reacher, the character, is a rambling dad. And he's
Lord, I was born a rambling dad.
just traveling around, getting the best deals on stuff. But
Explaining everything the best I can.
so my question for you is, in this exciting, action-packed adventure novel full of thrills, chills, fistfights, guns, etc.
A literal white-knuckle thrill ride.
Yeah. What is your favorite total dad move that Jack Reacher pulls?
And I'm assuming we're taking off the board the hijacking a lawn chair to take a nap in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Because we've
yeah.
talked about that already.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a list. Haggling with a motel clerk over the price of a hotel room. Hanging out for hours at a diner after buying one cup of coffee because it has endless refills. Proudly proclaiming that he likes to show up to things early because it lets him, quote unquote, get a feel for the situation.
Okay, this is getting a little personal, Jay.
All right. Stopping to note that he got to keep his shoes on when he used the pre-approved security line at the airport.
Nice.
Consistently trying to use cool slang and fucking it up, like saying things like, we should get a burner phone, or they had many lights the way kids pimped their pickup trucks.
Wait. Both of those are right, though, as far as I know.
They're just burners. Nobody says burner phone.
Fuck!
And you pimp out a truck. You don't just pimp it.
But pimp my ride.
Yeah, but
It's not pimp out my ride.
that was one example.
You're arguing. You're not just arguing with me. You're arguing with me, Exhibit, and a lot of Exhibit memes.
Okay. Insisting on purchasing an ancient
X.
cell phone. Insisting on purchasing an ancient cell phone without internet access because that's just a feature as far as I'm concerned. And little callback here, referring to the entirety of Eastern Europe as Russia, from around there, Georgia or Ukraine, one of those new countries. The knowledge that, quote unquote, women instinctively take the side of the bed nearest the bathroom. Getting real mad after tripping on a curb and looking back angrily at it. Or being amazed by the concept of Uber and or Lyft and referring to it as a thing on that guy's phone that summoned a car to the curb within minutes.
I hate to do this, but I'm actually going to go off list.
That's fine.
My favorite daddish example this is on page 32, and really establishes the kind of hot, heavy action we're in for. Reacher strolled back down the wide street, thinking, nap or haircut?
Yeah, any action book that involves naps.
Yeah. And does he, in fact, he dads it, like he full dads it. He does both.
He does.
He takes a moment to reflect that he thinks he got a pretty good price on the haircut.
He goes, it says $11. Pretty reasonable.
Reacher thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, my other favorite moments, like I loved so much of Reacher's like coffee obsession. You know, page 15. His default breakfast, pancakes, eggs, and bacon. But most of all, coffee. First and always. Page 27. He liked coffee. And he liked waitresses.
I really think that like if you're writing a gritty PI at this point and you don't want to make him a damaged alcoholic, the way you give him a default personality is he's really into coffee. So,
But the thing is, like, so Reacher's a drifter, right?
yeah.
He lives only in these kind of, at this point, semi-mythical towns that don't ever have a Denny's or a Village Inn. They're forced to eat at chain restaurants a couple times, and they bag on them without naming them.
Yeah.
But it's always
A large name coffee company is referred to when they go to Silicon Valley.
yeah. That there's a side detour in Chicago where they go to a classic Chicago coffee shop that has a TV conveniently playing the news on the wall, which is not a thing I'm accustomed to seeing in your average coffee shop.
Yeah.
That's more of a dive bar thing. But anyway, he eats at only locally owned diners and drinks about 78 cups of coffee a day, which at one point Michelle Chang calls him out on. It's like, your heart must be beating.
It's one of my favorite lines in the book that I forgot about. She says, "How do you drink so much coffee?" And he says, "It's gravity. You tip it up and it comes out. Can't help but drink it."
It's like that, yeah, this hard boiled slapstick nonsense, which is kind of endearing. But right after that, she says, "Wow, your heart must be pounding," and he says, "Beats the alternative."
Which I suppose he means being dead, but in my
Yes.
mind, the alternative would be having a normal heart rate.
Okay, but
Which,
I wanna,
like, as a man who now has a pacemaker, I can honestly say, you know,
It appeals to you, having a normal heart rate.
Having a normal heart rate, pretty cool.
it's the bomb.
yeah.
But I want to. I'm sorry to do this, everybody, but I want to move the focus a few inches downward from the heart. And this guy eats no vegetables.
Wow, you're right. Like, all he eats is bacon and eggs
All
and
he-
burgers and shit.
All he eats is bacon, eggs, toast, pancakes. All he drinks is coffee.
Do we need to go any further?
He must be a tougher man than I am. That's all I'm going to say, and we can move on.
Yeah, he goes through a lot of rolls of toilet paper. We'll just leave it at that.
We didn't even have to go there. A second favorite side note, he's a super tough guy, and he only associates with other super tough guys. And what do all of these super tough guys always have in their dad jean pockets? It's mentioned at least twice.
Flashlights?
Kleenex.
Kleenex, you're right.
Over and over again. I don't get it.
Are they in Tokyo? What's going on?
I don't know. It's this must be like one of my things where I'm like, a gentleman carries a handkerchief and a pocket knife, so I don't leave the house without my handkerchief and pocket knife.
You've got me on the handkerchief kick now, and it's come in handy several times.
It's a good kick.
yeah.
Anyway,
I guess that's about it for games because we're running pretty long. So why don't we saunter on out of here, out of this diner? We've been in here for about 4 hours drinking bottomless coffee. I'll make sure to leave a 20% tip. Yeah,
what up, high roller?
I love it. He says, "I left the waitress a big $5 tip or something. She was my new best friend." It's like, oh, buddy,
Yeah.
you are fooling yourself.
There's a moment in there where there's a motel maid who's over the moon because somebody left her $50, and he says, "That's a week's wages." And I'm like, all right, a little back of the envelope math. That's $200 a month. Whew, that job sucks.
Yeah. Also, are you supposed to tip motel maids? Because if
Yeah.
so, I've been a horrible person my entire life.
It's sort of the convention now that you leave a little something behind. Yeah, it doesn't have to be huge. I usually, at a cheaper place, especially if I didn't love the service, I might do 5. Any place better, it's 10 and up. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. From now on, I'm doing that. I had no idea that was a thing. Like, nobody in my family has ever done it, and that came as a surprise to me.
My sense-
and I feel like I need to atone for my sins now. Like,
Well, so you're going to make some lady who's apparently making $200 a month in an era where everybody has cell phones and most people have smartphones, other than Jack Reacher, who just doesn't see the point. Who would call him? Who would he want to call?
yeah. Well, shit. Okay. Well,
it's
I
new.
got to go
It's new.
start auditing the list of motels I've stayed in my adult life and sending out envelopes. And
Don't do that. You'll have to go back, because if you send envelopes of cash, as a guy who used to try to buy records over the mail, let me tell you what's going to happen.
yeah, I know. It'll just get stuck in the deep web.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we will be right back.
Baby boo, I'm a traveling man, moving through places, space and time. Got a lot of things I got to do. God willing, I'm coming back to you. Oh baby boo, I'm leaving. We'll go ahead and leave the call heard around the world from the wise of MCs. These cats is paying more than £5. I'm going back and snatch it down. I got the skate, but we could probably run them back in town.
Hey, folks, we have reached the end of our discussion about Make Me. Do you get it?
I don't.
Reached, like, reacher. Sorry, man. I've been smoking some of that Bubba Kush. It's really good head high. I've been thinking about mahogany a lot.
What if we've had this wrong the whole time and it's Racher?
That would be better, because Jack Reacher is a horrible name for a character. We haven't talked about that enough. Reacher is a really weird last name to pick.
Hey, man, you Reacher, you brought her.
I am sure Reacher is a last name that exists in the world, but it's a really weird last name to choose for your action hero.
Well, he has no real bodily needs or functions, and he comes and lays down the law. So you might say he's a preacher without the P.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but he's got that P.
I mean, as much coffee as he drinks.
Yeah, for sure. I was more thinking of the D, but still.
Oh.
Yeah. Like I said, he's into Roadhouse Blues. He's been in that warehouse playing with those Cialis guys for a while. So
He's seen a million ladies, and he's rocked several of them, the ones who approved of his, he offered his honor. They honored his offer. He was honor and offer all night.
One thing about Jack Reacher I will say is he does seem to be quite a proponent of enthusiastic consent.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
For a book like this, that's pretty crazy. At no point does he have sex with a woman who's saying no until they start having sex, at which point she says yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and he,
he plays it very gentlemanly, actually, until unfortunately, I can't remember her first name. Michelle, because, she's referred to as Chang throughout most of the book. Ugh. But until she essentially invites him in and is like, let's do it. And he's like, cool. So, big ups Jack Reacher for that.
Although that does take also the form of him forcing her to make the first move.
I wouldn't say he forces her to.
Kind of emotional, or part of his, rather, emotional cluelessness.
Yeah.
Masquerading as gentlemanly behavior.
I get the impression that Jack Reacher would be pretty well behaved on this front.
He would be well behaved, but he would also probably... I'm just saying she's got to do a lot more of the work in the relationship than he does.
That's true. He's not like, hey, would it be okay if... He's just kind of like,
whatever you say. Yeah. Also, he changes his clothes every 4 fucking days.
Yeah, oh, gross. But so let's recommend some stuff that isn't Jack Reacher. Why don't you go first?
Okay, I am going to recommend, as usual, a short-ish thing that one can read on the internet. This is a poem by Anne Carson, and it is called The Glass Essay. There will be, as always, a link in the show notes. Noodles sent this to me on a work day this week, and it basically cratered me for a very long time, because it's a long read, it's a difficult read, and it's an incredibly, utterly compelling read. I won't say anything about it other than recommended if you like the Brontes, harsh truths about parents and children, feelings, intense imagery, and so forth.
Okay, so it sounds like something you probably don't want to read at work.
Absolutely don't read it at work. Read in a place where you can take some breaks, where people are not going to look at you funny if there's some tears in your eyes.
I was just going to say, where no one will see you cry.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Sounds good. So I am also going to recommend something on the internet this time around, but it's pretty much the polar opposite of that. And it's an article from 2015 that I just recently came across. from the AV Club called "What It Was Like to Be a Nintendo Gameplay Counselor," and it's just basically an interview with 4 guys who all worked in Nintendo's warehouse, answering phone calls and telling people how to beat Zelda. And there are lots of pictures. All of them have prodigious mullets. It's amazing. And just a lot of very weird stories about a very strange job. And, it's a fairly short read, but for this kind of article, it's longer than you'd expect. And there's some pretty amazing insights into the kind of the culture that the early 80s game industry was, or late 80s, I guess, because it's Nintendo. But it's very entertaining. Very entertaining. I can't recommend it enough. It's short. It was written by Annie Zaleski back in 2015. And it's what's the word I'm looking for? You'll laugh at it, but maybe not for the reasons that you think you'll laugh at it.
Do they talk a lot about that asshole hand that would come out of the wall and grab you and deposit you at the beginning of the dungeon?
No, they don't actually, but they do talk a lot about how they would just make things up for games that they hadn't beat yet and stuff. So
those motherfuckers.
I guess towards the end of the whole thing, there were basically binders that had clues for all the new games. But in the early days, when games were coming out, you just take one home for a weekend and see how far you could get. And if people called up and you didn't have the answer for something yet, you just bullshit them.
I hate that so much.
And one of the guys was an aspiring shred guitarist who has just this amazing mullet. And he was like, it was a great job because I could practice guitar in my cube between calls. It's amazing.
How much would you hate the guy in the cube next to you who's playing what I can only assume is an unplugged in electric guitar?
Yeah, this is 88, 89, so scalloped fretboard,
right.
Yngwie Malmsteen, John Petrucci, kind of
but
Paganini influenced.
Yeah, but not plugged in. So basically you're just hearing a series of ticking noises.
Yeah, really fast ticking noises.
The worst thing I ever heard in a cube from cubes away from me, and I knew exactly who it was the sound of nails being clipped.
Oh, don't do that.
Don't do that.
I was on the bus yesterday with someone clipping their nails, and that's for your bathroom.
We are trying to have a society here.
Yeah.
We are accountable to one another, and one of the things that means is constraining our worst bodily urges.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Yeah. You don't need to scratch yourself in public. You don't need to trim your nails in public. Anything that involves gross parts of your body, just keep that at home.
Anyhow.
Yeah. Let's move on. Sometimes we get some correspondence, and then sometimes we talk about it. Here's a song.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter M, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
All right, so letters. I know we got one this time around.
We got a lot, but we're only going to read a little. This one is from Cody, fake last name. And he concludes, greetings from one Florida boy to another, Jay.
What's up?
Although I would describe Jay as a Florida man. But not that kind.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, wait a second. No, I'm just Floridified, but that's a different story. 8 essential vitamins and minerals.
Oh, God. Say your prayers, take your vitamins, and punch evil.
Yeah.
The Jack Reacher way.
Also a Florida boy. And a horrible racist. Anyway.
Hey, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Also, I'm sorry in advance. I just spent a good part of a night troubleshooting a bunch of audio problems with my PC. The end result is a bunch of running in circles, leading to the culprit actually being the program I use to listen to the podcast. Side note, sounds to me a lot like an experience troubleshooting a PC. That sucks. Thankfully, the solution was a simple rollback to an earlier version. But something went slightly awry when trying to resubscribe to your feed, to put it as lightly as possible. I was very tired after speaking with support, muddling with settings, and reinstalling programs, so my brain managed to conflate the RSS acronym with IRC. Imagine my surprise when I pressed enter on Google and saw some very NSFW work results.
Wait, for I don't even own a television.irc?
I realize I should probably clarify that this is essentially random. Nothing from what I glanced at while in shock and stitches actually relates to you two or your brand, much to everyone's relief. I've attached a very small sample that is hopefully not too offensive. I'll leave it to you two if you want to look for yourself and find out the rest, but I'm going to warn you, it's a bit of a doozy.
Oh, wow. Crane hentai cuckold eats. Yikes.
That's all I need to see.
So, wait, do you think it's like a bird crane or like a mechanical
La
crane?
la 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 la.
So I can kind of get down with
There is no force on earth that can get me to think about this question, Jay.
I'm just saying, like, I could kind of get down with, like, you know, like construction equipment that you know is having relations. Like, that seems like that would
Animated relations?
it would be entertaining, right? But like, if it's a bird with like human genitals, that would be weird.
So you're one stop away,
Dude, I want to see
from Transformers porn.
I was just gonna say, dude, I want to see Transformers fucking. Is what I'm saying. How else do they make new Transformers?
Do you think that's not a thing you can see within 2 clicks on the internet from any site you're on?
Well,
I'm sorry, IRS.gov is probably no more than 2 clicks away
yeah.
from the one female Autobot having sex with 2 Decepticons.
That's what I was just thinking. I'm like, well, most of it would be like dudes because like almost all Transformers are guys, so it would like probably be mostly like dude on dude.
Except my sense is that the people who like to draw Transformers having sex mostly don't like to focus on what they perceive as male on male sex.
Uh-huh.
It's not clear to me. Like, there's one woman in the Transformers universe that I'm aware of. That's RC.
Yeah.
It's not clear to me that a universe with one woman and an exclusively male counterpart actually reflects the gender binary as we experience it here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Smurfs conundrum.
Exactly. To say nothing of fuck your gender binary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're fucking, it's bot on bot, really.
Yeah.
When you get down to it, I mean, there's a scale for sure with bots.
I mean, so is it for, okay, let's say you're Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
You are trying to discourage fraternization among your groups just because it creates leadership conundra.
And
right?
also because you're a boring ass stodgy fuck.
Right.
Yeah. Because Optimus.
Is it better or worse if, say, a Dinobot is snuggling up with a Construction-O-Bot or whatever they were called? Constructicon. Right. Is that worse?
Well, that would be worse because Constructicons were evil.
Oh, shit. You're right. I'd forgotten that. Anyway, if you have opinions about Transformers sex,
I'm totally okay with bot-on-bot sex of all varieties, as long as they do not have human genitalia. Because every time I go and look at bot-on-bot sex, which is a thing I do regularly, for some reason people like to draw human dick and balls on them, and I'm not down with that.
it just seems wrong somehow. I mean, not wrong as in morally repugnant, wrong as in simply incorrect.
Yeah, it couldn't work.
You're just wrong.
They just need like a girder down there or something.
Not everything that is longer than it is wide reads to me as penisy.
Okay, whatever, prude. So I think it's time to move on to...
It is, but I just want to be very clear. I am not a prude. I am merely a virgin.
Okay. So moving on to a thing we do semi-regularly. As most people know, this show, like all of our shows, is brought to you by our wonderful backers at patreon.com/IDEOTVpod. And if you donate at a certain level, you get shouted out on the show. And normally it's in the form of a poem. But we've decided to flip the script a little bit because Collision has obtained a document entitled Reacher's Rules.
Like Jack Reacher, I've gone above and beyond. So, to the donors at the highest level, you have supported us hard, you've supported us well, and your reward is that we are now telling you to live the next month of your life according to a randomly selected Reacher rule.
So write in, let us know how this works for you. We have randomly selected some numbers that correspond to these rules, and we'll start out reading them to you. First off would be Rich with number 720.
720. This is Rule 5, changing your underwear. Always buy the cheapest white underpants. Remember that khaki socks will give you away if you're going undercover. Many people stick to underwear from their country of origin. It's a big step putting on foreign underwear, like betrayal or emigration. If caught short, go commando.
Told ya. Motherfucker, Jack Reacher does not wear undies.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. I have to read you the next thing.
Okay.
The longest time a traveling man can go without ... a shower. 4 days.
Disgusting. All right.
That's not it. Changing his clothes. 9 days.
Ugh.
Changing his underwear. Any guess?
Way longer than it should be.
9 days.
Oh, fuck that.
I lost the ability to wear a pair of underwear more than once slightly after I turned 30.
Apparently, a traveling man doesn't care about jock itch. So, Rich, don't change your underwear for 9 days. That's...
No, Rich, do, but only buy tidy whities. Think about your socks. And if caught short, go commando. And write in and let us know how that went.
Next up is the aptly named Jack 206.
Jack, your rule, conquer your fear.
That's a good one.
Oh, my God. You see something crazy? Sorry, you see something scary? You should stand up and step toward it, not away from it, instinctively, reflexively, in a raging fury.
Okay, so Jack, spend the next month of your life in a fury.
Yeah, maybe drink 72 cups of coffee a day.
Yeah, that would probably help. Yeah, and spend your life angry. Good idea. Okay, up next we have Patrick, 574.
Here we just have a medley of military acronyms. I'm going to pick the imperatives. CYA.
Oh, cover your ass.
LGH.
Looking good, Holmes?
Let's go home. Swag, one of my least favorites.
I know what that one is. It has something to do with Soulja Boy.
Scientific wild-ass gas.
I thought it was shit we all get.
And WTF. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Yeah.
I was at a soccer match yesterday, and I saw a fellow wearing a T-shirt that just said, oh, God, what was it? What's G?
Golf.
Yeah, Golf Foxtrot Yellow or whatever it was. And it took me a minute to put it together, and I was like, no, buddy, why don't you go fuck yourself?
Oh, God, why can I not remember why? X is X-ray. Y is... Fuck, I can't remember. I know all of the NATO phonetic alphabet, but Y is evading me. I could do, Alpha, Beta, Charlie, Delta, all of them. Echo.
You can certainly do...
You already know which one I can definitely do.
Sierra Hotel.
Yes, Sierra Hotel, India, Echo, Lima, Delta.
Without being rude, how many people now know how to spell shield correctly because of the WWE?
That's true. Before that, they were always putting the E before the I. Thank you, guys. But no, one night I got really bored, and I just decided I would look up the NATO alphabet, and I memorized most of it, but I cannot fucking remember yet what Y is. It's not yellow.
Why?
It's something fairly less obvious.
Because we love you.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Okay, so Fred, 811.
Oh, boy. Fred, you may or may not know this, but back in the day, there was a band called Public Enemy. And in Public Enemy, there was a young man named Flavor Flav. And he was known for many a thing, but one of those things was wearing a giant-ass clock on his chest. Why? Because if you know what time it is, it signifies that you're aware. And he was very aware. So he wore a very big clock to signify that. And that leads us to this Reacher rule, which is knowing the time. And we get a little quote. He set the clock in his head for 2 hours. and he breathed in once, and he breathed out once, and then he fell asleep almost instantly, which I know is from a book different than ours, because in our book, he breathes in once, stretches once, coughs once, and then falls completely asleep.
He also sets the clock in his head for 6 a.m. By the way, it's fucking Yankee, which like occurred to me halfway through that sentence.
Right.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so other Patrick, 377.
370. So know what time it is, brother.
Yeah, know what time it is, Fred? Maybe get a giant clock like Flava Flav.
I definitely get it. I mean, do you remember when people were not just wearing giant clocks, but like stopwatches, like those digital stopwatches? That was so fucking cool.
There's a guy on my bus route who is a professional Flava Flav impersonator. And by professional, I mean he hands out flyers. I don't know if he gets gigs. But every day he gets on the bus in like a purple like velour suit with a giant clock around his neck. He's really friendly.
Will he be the hype man at our next live show? Only time will tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, what was that number?
For second Patrick, it is 377.
Patrick, it's time for you to learn the 7 characteristics of a good sniper. Excellent marksman, good woodsman, emotionally stable, keenly observant, aware of his surroundings, good with a map, patient. Actually, all of those things except maybe excellent marksman, I'm 100% endorsing. So try those 6 things out for the next month. Let us know how it went.
Yeah, just don't like shoot stuff.
Don't shoot anybody.
Yeah, not on our behalf.
Or anybody else's behalf, frankly.
Yeah, but especially not on ours. I don't want that on my hands. 466 would be the next number.
Awesome.
And this is for our good friend Jonathan.
Woo! Jonathan, keep on the move. Always move on and never look back. Never do the same thing twice. Which is funny because Reacher's done the same thing at least 20 times by my count. And
Half of this book is Reacher doing the same thing over and over again.
The best place for a nomad to sleep is a motel. It has beds and doors that lock. Does that mean it has beds that lock? Anyway, pay cash and don't give your real name.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's some good advice there.
Arrange the smallest details in your life so that you can move on at a split second's notice. Own nothing. Carry nothing. 2 days in one place is about the limit.
So, Jonathan, we have essentially sent you on a pilgrimage now. And apparently you now, for the next month, need to become a monk.
Yeah. But a moving monk, a roaming monk.
Traveling monk.
Kind of like in Kung Fu.
Yeah, like of the Buddhist variety.
Yeah.
Okay, so 171.
So, yeah, in about a month, go to a... go to a library and use the internet and tell us where you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can wire you some money if you need.
171.
171.
Daniel. What's up for Daniel?
Daniel, well, you are going to learn some facts about what it is and what it means to be in the United States Army Military Police. 1, maintain discipline and security in the Army. 2,
in the Army.
Army. The Army, you may remember that from a Coheed and Cambria record.
I was just going to say the Army is when 3 different guys in uniform sing a different note at the same time.
Okay. Protect supply routes and guard prisoners. Act as a fighting force in combat. Act as peacekeepers at war's end. Aid disaster relief. Manage internal security. And uphold democracy. So yeah, I would say that your charge for the next month is to aid disaster relief and uphold democracy.
Oh, part of the hashtag resistance.
Yeah.
It's very important. And last but not least, we have Reese with my favorite number, 182.
Yes! Blink.
Yes, Reese, this is growing up.
Reese, you are about to learn about the rules of coffee.
Ooh, this is a good one to end on.
If in doubt, drink 2 coffee. Sorry. If in doubt, drink coffee. Nothing's too urgent for coffee. A bad coffee mug has a thick lip. Too wide, too shallow, too much mass. It will cool the drink too fast. A good coffee mug is cylindrical in shape, narrow in relation to its height, and with a thin lip. Never say no to a cup of coffee.
Or cherry pie. Thanks a lot, bootleg Agent Cooper.
So yeah, I think your mission is possibly the clearest of all.
Yeah, drink a lot of coffee and, make sure that there's always a bathroom nearby. 'Cause, man, that shit runs right through you.
And tip your waitress.
Yeah, tip your waitress for sure. Especially if you're going to hang out for 4 hours drinking bottomless coffee, which we do not recommend. That's shitty.
No.
If anyone who's worked in the food service industry knows that turning over tables is pretty important, don't be that asshole that's like, oh, I've got the endless refills. I'm just going to sit here forever.
No, fuck it. I live here now.
Yeah.
Guess what?
You've got to just it's 24 hours.
This rambling,
You got to keep pouring me coffee for 3 days.
This rambling man, he ain't rambling no place, friend.
So, now that we've gone through that, just want to let everybody know, if you want to get a hold of us, it's I don't even own a television at gmail.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter at IDEOTV Pod. So give us a shout there, unless you're going to correct us about something, because then we'll just get really mad.
Yeah. And if you're going to type something into a little box that we're going to see, please remember that there are people on the other end of that little box. So that is something that I feel sad that I have to remind people of, but sometimes I do have to remind people of. The other thing is this episode, like all episodes, is brought to you by Patreon. That's patreon.com/IDEOTV pod. Mea culpa, I'm a little behind, and by a little behind, I mean behind, on some merch fulfillment. I am going to get to it. Be patient. You're going to get some little extras. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it.
We got some new stickers coming soon.
We got a lot of new stickers coming soon.
Yeah.
Lots of other little goodies. I think you're going to like it.
It'll be worth waiting for.
Yeah.
For sure. We are a two-man operation despite our massive production crew.
It's basically two men taking credit for the labors of thousands.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening, and until next time,
keep drinking coffee.
I hear that train coming round the hill. I hope that is my train. I'd better check my schedule. Oops, that was the train to Appleton, but it's going to Circle Pines. Yeehaw! And I've got about 20 minutes to kill. It's a good thing I brought some magazines. Been riding on this old train, been riding it all night. I think I'll go to the club car and get myself a bite. This tuna melt sandwich really tastes quite nice. Oh, I got sesame seeds in the bun. Plus it comes with coleslaw and a pickle, and I must say it's reasonably priced. Carole.
5:15 from Duluth, oh my, it's just derailed. The toxic waste is spilling, the conductor's been impaled. A benzene cloud has risen.